Another lovely day. I walk around the city centre of Parma. While I was doing this, I was thinking about some of the comments made in my previous discussion on Hahnemann and case taking. And the more I look into the subject, the more I see homeopathy has been sidetracked completely by Kent. We have to always examine the criteria for prescribing via Hahnemann and nobody else. It's no surprise that Berningshausen was the most rated prescriber of his time, because he followed exactly the principles and methodology of Hahnemann. When I look at the history, I see that James Tyler Kent is the single most responsible person for misleading people in evaluating mental symptoms, mainly in his writings on homeopathic philosophy, but even in the layout of the repertory. The other thing about the repertory you may or may not know is that it is an ad hoc collection of about 5 to 7 different repertories and papers all put together and collated. Now, while you might think this is okay, each repertory has its own methodology. In putting them together, you lose the whole basis and understanding of the repertorial analysis that the original writer had in mind when he compiled his repertory. And that is why, if you were to take any symptom and analyze it and look at the remedies, you might be surprised how misleading some of them are. So getting back to mental symptoms, the whole basis of aphorism 211 as stated previously as being the key to case taking is erroneous. This is a Kantian concept based on Swedenborg and has misled hundreds of thousands of homeopaths since Kent wrote his works. What you might not know is the extent to which Swedenborgianism infiltrated homeopathic circles. Most of the homeopaths that you read their works were in fact Swedenborgians. I won't go into what Swedenborg wrote in his philosophical and religious writings. You can read that yourself. Dr. Garth Wilkinson was a Swedenborgian. I think Garth Wilkinson was the one who put together Heckler Lava. He was educated at the Hahnemann College in Philadelphia, which was founded by Constantine Herring. Herring himself was a member of the First Society of Swedenborgians in Philadelphia. Hans Gram introduced homeopathy in America in 1825. Otis Clapp from New England, John Ells from Michigan, and even Beriker and Tafel were well-known Swedenborgians. Further to this, Henry James Sr., who was a publisher, and he was the father of the American writers William James and Henry James Jr. Whether it was a fashionable thing or not to be a member of the Swedenborgian Association or a deep-found religious conviction, the fact remains that the majority of homeopaths at the time in America were Swedenborgian. James Tyler Kent, his second wife Clara, she was a leading figure in the Swedenborgian church, and I think it was possibly her that introduced Kent to the Swedenborgian concept. We should not forget that it was Clara who read and edited and revised Kent's writings. One of the worst things in terms of a therapeutic approach to homeopathic application that Kent did was ascribing the mental symptoms to the personality of the patient and attributing it as of value. If you read his writings on the different remedies, you will see basically what he has corrupted are absolute symptoms with personality traits. This is wrong on so many levels because it is taken away from the Hahnemannian directive of ascertaining changed and altered symptoms. For the critical thinking homeopath, we recommend you go and read one or two of Kent's lectures and then decide, is this actually a prescribing symptom or is this a personality picture? Remember, if we prescribe for changed and altered symptoms, then this makes no sense at all. If you look very hard at what is being said, you can see that most modern teachers or gurus or fashionable leaders in homeopathy, which have based their teachings on the Kantian philosophy, especially mental, emotional and psyche, you're going to be disappointed in the practice application of this therapy. If you were to look at the Greek school led by George Vathulkas, you will see that his emphasis is on the mental symptoms, and you will see that he bases this solely on the Kantian incorrect philosophy for the application of the Hahnemannian directives. If you look at the Indian school, Sankaran, it's just enough to mention that the central delusion theory does not hold water. It is bad medicine, bad psychology, and it's not even homeopathy, so there's no more to be said on that. Then you have the Sehgal school of medicine, which I think also influenced Sankaran, where they ignore, in the main, physical symptoms altogether and try and collate just a mentalized psyche picture of the patient. Often when evaluating a case, and I've seen this myself and heard it many times, because of this emphasis on the psyche, the emotion and mental, when they look for a remedy reaction, they only look in the mood of the patient and they ascribe to it the effects of the remedy. They totally overlook that marginal changes can even be the effect of placebo effect in a consultation. When sat with a patient in the clinic, an intense talking to can affect the patient so much that they feel something has happened on the mental level, and yet physically nothing has changed, but both the homeopath and the patient feel something is happening, and later on this is proved not to be the case. The sad thing is that these absolute and striking deviations from Hahnemann that Kent introduced, because the modern school of homeopathy started in the 60s, has been initiated again or revived from Kantian followers. His teachings have been mixed in with the real teachings of Hahnemann. The trouble is, before you label yourself a classical prescriber or a Hahnemannian, you should really just go and check yourself and see that the teachings you have acquired follow the criteria that Hahnemann laid down, both in the Organon and his other writings. And you need to really ascertain that your case taking follows his principles if you want your patients to have success in their treatment. This is only one example that I can put together regarding misleading notions of Kent. There are many, many more. Hahnemann's insistence that we take into consideration the absolute totality of symptoms, both the physical and the mental, have the pre-required knowledge that they have to be altered in some way from the previous state of health. This lets out all personality prescribing. This lets out all continuation of disease process. If it's a congenital one, you have to be looking solely for altered symptoms and ignore the common elements of them, and wherever they come from, you take all symptoms into consideration, be it physical, be it mental. If there's no change, there is no prescribing symptom, period. You can't lean towards a remedy based on an evaluation of the mental or emotional state if it has not changed, or if it is a personality. You will fail. I often tell my colleagues and students in seminars that it is imperative that whatever I say or anyone else says, you go back to the source references and you find out what actually was said, and you take from that your methodology and approach. The Kantian way, while assumed to be Hahnemannian, is absolutely in opposition to Hahnemann's methodology. And the sad thing is, myself as a singular and lone voice, along with a few colleagues, nobody is listening. These are not my words or my feelings. These are the facts of history. You can read them. The Institute for Homeopathic Medicine, of where I work and with some colleagues, we use out of choice the therapeutic pocketbook of Bonninghausen. It has the entire, well, most of the remedies that Hahnemann used in them, and a very good repertorial concept for getting to the key points of the patient's disorder. We don't use Kent's repertory for reasons stated previously, and we don't use Bonninghausen's repertory other than as a reference, simply because, again, that is a collation of all of Bonninghausen's work, and in doing so it lost the methodology for an accurate combination of symptoms and a synthesis of the problem to indicate remedies to look at. As we further our homeopathic experience, we are convinced that dropping Kent and his works and his thinking and returning to Hahnemann is the single most important thing that you can do as a practitioner. You don't need me to tell you or anyone else. You can read this yourself, and I suggest very humbly and strongly that you go and do this. If you do need any help or direction, then write us at this website, and we will point you in the right direction. We don't give our own advice or our own thinking. We just point you to what Hahnemann said and others, and this will guide you on your way. We do offer courses for people wishing to learn how to use Bonninghausen's repertory effectively and how to think like Hahnemann, again through his writings. So if this appeals to you, you can write us. Other than that, I'm going to enjoy the rest of the day, and I shall leave this with you. Catch up with you another time.
may not really get that. My problem comes